You're listening to a podcast from The Word.
I thought that in common with every other media node, we ought to just pay tribute to the fact that Prince Harry's book comes out, which is called Spare.
Called Spare.
And
Such excitement.
And I'm going to give you 5 celebrity memoirs, okay? One of which, the title of which I've made up. Okay.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yep.
So here we go. Letting It All Hang Out by RuPaul. Letting It All Hang Out by RuPaul.
Yep.
My Bookie Wook by Russell Brand. My Bookie Wook by Russell Brand.
Yep.
Don't Hassle the Half by David Hasselhoff. That is, of course, Don't Hassle the Half by David Hasselhoff. Then The Gripes of Wrath by David Lee Roth. The Gripes of Wrath by David Lee Roth. And finally, Russell Simmons and Life and Death. Life and Death. See what he did there? Okay, which one of those of Def Jam? So which one of those 5 have I just made up?
Well, Life and Death is, they would have to do that, wouldn't they? It's just inevitable. My Bookie Book, I remember it coming out, Russell Brand. That was indeed a real publication. Was it Letting It All Hang Out with RuPaul? I think that's likely somehow. Gripes of Wrath was a kind of standard headline, wasn't it? Every time you opened Sounds every week in about 1979. Terribly funny, I thought. And so it could have been, but I think because it's so weak, I think Don't Hassle the Hoff is so pathetically weak that not even the most desperate publisher would have dared foist that, as we used to say, upon an unsuspecting public.
And you'd be wrong, because they did.
No.
So the one that's made up is The Gripes of Wrath by David Lee Roth, which, as you say, was a million times.
It was.
There actually was a book called Don't Hassle the Hoff by David Hasselhoff. It's a fact.
It's a fact.
Okay.
That's shocking, isn't it?
Have you got a Stack Waddy game?
My favorite is still Tall, Dark and Handsome with Alan Hansen, which I think is very good. Yeah. I've got a quick true or false, right? Okay. 5 pop star film or TV cameos.
Mm-hmm.
4 of them real, 1 concocted by me. Spot the ringer. True or false? Frank Zappa appeared briefly as a drug dealer in Miami Vice in 1986. That's Frank Zappa as a drug dealer. Miami Vice. Kate Bush plays a bride in a fantasy sequence in an episode of the comic strip in 1990. Yeah. Paul Weller, dressed as a Viking, appears as a dead body lying on the floor of 221B Baker Street in an episode of Sherlock. Okay. Paul Heaton, later of The Beautiful South, this time I suppose the house artist, was wearing an extra wearing a flat cap and riding a bike in Coronation Street in 1992. And Amy Mann played a nihilist who loses a toe in a failed kidnap scam in The Big Lebowski in the 1970s. So,
well, they're all very plausible, and I'm just going to pick one because I don't know for a fact about any of them, actually. I'm going to pick my ringer would be Paul Weller.
No, Paul Weller actually did happen because he's a big mate of Martin Freeman, so he got into that thing.
Right.
But no, the ringer actually is Paul Heaton, because somebody did appear as an extra in Coronation Street in the 70s, and it was Morrissey. Morrissey in his memoir revealed, because he was a massive super fan of Coronation Street. And Morrissey did appear, not wearing a flat cap, but riding a bike very briefly in a scene. Rather sweet. He said it was a fleeting scene. He said, so brief that even if you don't blink at all, you will miss me. So, yeah, it was Morrissey. But good work from you. Very good.
I can't let the mention of Coronation Street go by without once more recapitulating my brief experience with Coronation Street in the late 70s, 1977, I think, probably.
Yeah.
I went to Granada Television in Manchester to see Tony Wilson, who at the time was doing So It Goes and the local news program and so forth. And he took me, he said, let's go to lunch in the stables. I said, what's the stables? He said, well, it's kind of bar sort of attached, very near to Granada, and everybody uses it. And so we go in there. Those were the days when all television stations had clubs, didn't they? And everybody drank at all television, at every lunch hour or every tea time or whatever. They'd all drink, wouldn't they? And anyway, I went into there with Tony Wilson, and there was a bunch of kind of cameramen for World in Action and, whatever else Granada were doing. And then sprinkled amongst these people were members of the cast of Coronation Street, which is the strangest thing you've ever seen in your life. To go to a normal bar and you see Stan Ogden over there and Hilda over the other side of the room.
But they were still recognizable. Obviously, they weren't in costume or anything. They were still recognizable, clearly. Completely
recognizable, because these people, you know them almost better than members of your own family.
I know.
It's an absolutely astonishing thing. And somebody was asking me about this recently, and I said, yes, it was called The Stables. And I looked it up, and there's a web page devoted to it.
No
kidding. The Stables Bar. Other things, there's very sad news about the death of Gianluca Vialli today, the Chelsea and Italy player. I'm just going to tell you one only brief point about Gianluca Vialli. My wife, as you know, is a teacher, and at one stage she had one of Gianluca Vialli's children in her class, and so you meet them once a year or whatever at parents' evening, and my wife doesn't follow the football, I think it's fair to say, but she was aware that this child's father was Gianluca Vialli, who duly turns up for parents' evening, and we had an old ad manager friend of ours. She used to talk about people who could charm the knickers off the vicar's wife.
That's right, Rod Sop.
Yeah. Well, my wife came out floating on air, having met Gianluca Vialli, because he was the only parent she'd ever met in considerable experience as a teacher. Only parent she'd ever met who signed off at the end of the encounter by kissing her hand.
Oh my Lord!
What a gentleman!
Oh, that's fantastic!
What an absolute gentleman! And of course, being Gianluca
that's unforgettable.
Vialli, he had the kind of charisma to carry it off. You know what I mean? It wouldn't look like a gauche try to,
No, it would look like something he did all the time.
Absolutely.
Part of the rich culture of his country.
Absolutely. So, when everybody says what a gentleman Gianluca Vialli was, he clearly was. Absolutely everybody in the game who had anything to do with him has got nothing but praise for him as a human being. So that was my wife's brief glancing encounter, unforgettable encounter with Gianluca Vialli.
The Word Podcast, prime cuts of popular culture served fresh each week.
The New York Times have been running a very good little series called 5 Minutes That Will Make You Love, then put in anything, and they started with kind of classical music, and it was string quartets, and then it was opera, and then it's whatever. And basically the idea that within 5 minutes you can be convinced that there is something in something that you previously never very much thought about. And I saw the one the other day that says 5 minutes that won't make you love Sun Ra.
That's a challenge.
Well, I know it struck me. I don't really know anything about Sun Ra at all. But anyway, two things. So we're talking about, because you know a little bit about Sun Ra. Okay, we'll come to that in a second. But first thing, it made me think that format takes advantage of one of the great qualities, one of the great boons of the streaming era, which I don't think we pay sufficient mind to. I don't think we give sufficient credit to, which is the fact that with a couple of clicks, you can be listening to anything in the world, can't you? And that didn't apply 20, 30 years ago.
And with no investment. You don't have to buy it. You can just chance it.
No investment whatsoever.
You can chance it. If you don't like it, then abandon it.
And I just thought, surely what's going to happen with streaming is it's going to make us more liberal, if you like, in our tastes. because it's going to make us more likely to encounter things
that
we don't think are within our
it's completely risk-free, isn't it? Trying anything at all is fine.
Completely risk-free. And, I think I've done this with quite a lot of things. Like I've said to you, I've been listening to a lot of jazz in the last couple of years. And that's partly because it's just at arm's length. It's absolutely there all the time. Anyway, Sun Ra. I still know very little about Sun Ra. Give me the highlights of Sun Ra.
So, I mean, I interviewed him in 1982 at the Venue in Victoria. And I mean, at that stage, there wasn't much information about him. He'd been a member of the Fletcher Henderson band. So the big orchestra, so he was quite a conventional jazz musician. And he'd just gone off at a tangent and formed the orchestra and had brilliantly invented a completely fictional persona. So when I went to interview him, he never once stepped out of character. I asked him if he was from Saturn, as he claimed to be, and he said he was from Saturn, but he was now from the Omniverse. He said, I'm 10,000 years old. He was now a resident of the space-time continuum, and he wore a huge headdress and a great big cloak. And his real name actually was Herman Poole Blount, which is pretty prosaic. But I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Actually, he was nearly 70. Now I think about it at the time, and he formed this kind of random, free-form, unbelievably outrageous orchestra playing this very, very free-form jazz. It's quite interesting because actually he's a bit like Frank Zappa in some ways, that they both have presented themselves as being these exotic kind of characters, but behind the scenes were probably incredibly focused and fiercely efficient, and writing sheet music and recruiting and running and rehearsing orchestras and getting to play really complicated music. So that was it. And a lot of his music is very, very, Door to the Cosmos, Space Loneliness number 2. They're really, really difficult polyrhythmic exercises, But he does do quite conventional things. There's a version of Pink Elephants on Parade from Dumbo, which is a kind of full orchestra, kind of whole band singing version. So there's all sorts of stuff you can explore. But he is a very acquired taste.
But anyway, you can acquire it, according to the New York Times, 5 minutes, and they just give they get a bunch of different musicians or critics or whatever to nominate one thing that you should listen to. And I just thought it was a really good format.
Who would you nominate?
Oh, I don't know. It caught me on the hop there. I'll tell you what I was thinking. I was listening to Van Dyke Parks. Van Dyke Parks, who we talked about in the past on the podcast, and Van Dyke Parks he's a kind of arranger, composer who's flitted around, in the kind of orbit of better known people probably all his career, but is an immensely funny and engaging person. Anyway, worked with Little Feat, arranged stuff for them, did film music, worked with, I don't know, all kinds of people from Los Angeles. And I fastened upon a record of his, and I'm going to a slight tangent here, but it kind of fits. I found a record of his on streaming services called Super Chief. Does Super Chief mean anything to you?
No, I've not heard that.
Okay, the Super Chief was a train that used to run from Chicago to Los Angeles in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Very luxurious train. And those were in the days when if you wanted to go from Chicago to Los Angeles, you couldn't fly. There wasn't a regular, air service. So you took, the train, which took a few days and it was a very luxurious experience. And a lot of the people who took that train were going out to seek their fortune in Hollywood. They're going towards the sun, they were going towards the sea, they were going towards the land of plenty. There was going to be the prospect of fame and fortune and so forth. Van Dyke Parks made a record a few years ago called Super Chief, which is a bunch of film music that he wrote that I think never turned up on any film soundtrack. But it's fantastic. And once you put it under the name of the Super Chief, it has a kind of logic to it, even though it's entirely instrumental music. Now, Van Dyke Parks is one of those people who kind of whinges about the passing of the old record business and the replacement of people buying records with streaming and how you can't make any money out of it and all that kind of stuff. And it really struck me quite forcibly. Back in the days when people put out physical records, Van Dyke Parks records would just disappear without trace. You know, they'd come out, about 6 record shops would take one copy, 3 of them would sell their 3, and the other ones wouldn't bother. And the records would be just deleted. They would just disappear from view. I think this is something that people have forgotten nowadays, that obscure records used to just disappear.
You could never find them.
They went out the catalogue. They were never repressed. They were never reissued at all. They just vanished. I can remember trying to buy Beach Boys records in the early 70s. Couldn't be done.
And that's the Beach Boys.
That's the bloody Beach Boys.
I know, yeah.
Let alone Van Dyke Parks.
But the boys, that stuff's all available now, isn't it?
Well, the thing about streaming is it sits there forever.
If I dialed up Super Chief, I could find it, couldn't I?
Of course you could.
Yeah.
And, and we can talk about it on this podcast today, and a few people will go off and listen to it, and they'll be able to go off and listen to it. In the days of physical product, that would not have been possible. You know what I mean? So, if I wrote that, if 5 minutes with this will make you love Van Dyke Parks, that would be one of my choices. Anyway, it's funny. We were talking about Sun Ra and talking about elderly jazzers. It was the 81st birthday of John McLaughlin this week.
Who looks in great shape, doesn't he?
My God.
What a testament for meditation and pulse foods.
Absolutely.
He probably stands on his head for half an hour every morning, He looks great.
He looks sensational.
He does.
He's got fabulous grey hair, incredibly boyish appearance, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he looks so happy, doesn't he? And just so absolutely fulfilled.
Every time I see John McLaughlin, I go away with a spring in my stride because I think, he's a man who looks happy with his lot.
Absolutely. Nothing to complain about.
Nothing to complain about at all. And the clip that I think I showed you that he was being interviewed, and he said, somebody from Jazz FM said, you've written some great melodies, And he said what he always says, which is, I don't really think I wrote them. I found them,
But you see, quite a few people have said that, haven't they?
I think it's a really good point.
I do. I think it's a really good point because it sounds like faux modesty, where you're saying, "Oh, I didn't actually write that." I mean, it's just, there is a kind of celestial song cloud, and I have been divinely chosen as to be one of the pipes through which these already completed songs are downloaded. That's that kind of argument, isn't it? So the implication is that it's not possible to write a completely original song, and I sort of think that's true, actually, to some extent. I don't know if you do.
It must be. Listen, I think it's all to do. I mean, I don't have a bone of musical creativity about me at all, but I do think any form of what we call creativity is the ability to recognize patterns and the ability to take what your recognition is and to move it forward. And, so you and I can probably do it on a very low level with words because we can see these things. We can see, if you move that over there, it'll be a bit
but
more
also
like
you've
that.
Got phrases in your head that you might have read somewhere else that you've sort of subconsciously memorized. You're going to trot those out.
And so musicians do the same thing with music. And, that's why he says, I found the odd thing. It just means it struck his ear in a certain way, and he's been able to take that and kind of run with it.
Well, I always thought that with the Beatles in Hamburg, 10,000 hours. You think how many songs they were playing 6 90-minute sets there. How many songs? Rock and roll, and Motown, and music hall, and R&B. Just the number of songs they'd worked out how to play. So if you start to compose a song and play a chord, there's going to be something in you that's telling you that there are various other chords you could go to, automatically.
Yeah.
My feeling is like A Day in the Life starts with G and goes to B minor and E minor. Well, a million songs have used that chord sequence. It's just a natural thing. It just sounds good. It's a perfect cadence, and there's a finite number of notes. There are 12 notes, but there's an infinite number of words. And I think it's probably the words, actually, that I can accept that most people, the unique thing you're doing is using a whole lot of pre-used ideas in an original way. But it's the words that probably make songs unique. I don't know. What do you think?
It's funny. The same week that I saw John McLaughlin, looking fantastic, saying this, I read Zadie Smith wrote a review of the film Tar with Kate Blanchett.
Yeah,
she plays a conductor, doesn't she, or a composer?
Yeah,
and she, just a bit of a throwaway line in this very long review, which is really good review. It says, "Is an individual human ever really the sole source of any particular piece of music in the first place?" And I think it's a perfectly fair question.
Perfectly fair point.
Because the whole economy of the music business is based on the idea that it is possible. But everything we learn indicates that it's not really possible. It can't be done on your own, It all comes, you're standing on the shoulders of everybody you came before,
Yeah, you're either deliberately looking at other songs, like Noel Gallagher always admits he does, and thinking, I'm going to take that chord structure and I'm going to use it myself. Or you're inventing a chord structure without being aware of the fact that it is probably very similar to something you've heard in the past. So you might as well accept that it's very, very hard to be original.
Yeah. So anyway, John McLaughlin.
Rolling Stones. Did you see the Rolling Stone list of 200 best singers?
Oh, right. Yeah, go on. Who won?
Those things are infuriating. Do you want the top 10?
Yeah, go on.
Let's find their top 10. Where are we? 12, John Lennon, 11, Little Richard. Yeah, 10 Al Green, 9, Otis Redding, 8, Beyonce, 7, Stevie Wonder, 6, Ray Charles, 5, Mariah Carey, 6, Billie Holiday, 4, Billie Holiday, 3, Sam Cooke, 2, Whitney Houston, number 1, you can imagine, Aretha Franklin.
So, but sorry, how do you get Billie Holiday, fair enough, but no Frank Sinatra?
No Frank Sinatra. Well, he's in there. I can't remember where he is, but he's not in the top 12.
Oh, he's below that.
Oh, Lord, yeah. I mean, these things are designed to infuriate. And my God, they succeed. And I'll have a look, but I'm not going to let myself get annoyed. I find Howlin' Wolf at number 59. I find Freddie Mercury at number 14. This doesn't seem right to me. But
I don't think it is. I don't think they are devised to annoy people. They're devised to tick the right boxes.
There's a lot of virtue signaling.
Of course there is. But anyway, the correct answer to the question, who is the best singer? I know.
You know the answer. I think I know the answer too, but go on, give me yours.
Well, the answer is Ray Charles. It's just as simple as that. Because, Ray Charles didn't write any songs. I don't think he wrote anything, did he? I don't think he did. But mastered.
Did he not write Hit the Road Jack and all that? Maybe not.
I'm not sure if he did. God,
okay.
I don't. It could be. I mean, loads of things like "Mess Around" was written by Ahmet Ertegun, and all his country hits were all kind of, I don't know, they're written by country songwriters. I may be completely wrong about this, but the point being about Ray Charles is he mastered every style. He could just do absolutely anything. He could do rock and roll. He could do country. He could do rhythm and blues. And he could do, if you want proof of just how remarkable Ray Charles was as a singer, beyond his extraordinary distinctiveness and the drama with which he could imbue absolutely anything without trying, go and listen to his version of America the Beautiful. It's just astonishing.
Oh, that's nice.
It's just
I'm going to go and do
astonishing.
That. I think probably my favorite singer is probably Sam Cooke, and I think his greatest moment is A Change Is Going to Come, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. It's got that ability. It's kind of light as air, and it's kind of mellifluous, and it's gorgeous sound. And you feel he can go in any direction he wants. He's effortless. and he's not threatening. You know, there's certain singers you listen to, and it's almost like they're almost saying that you're saying, you know, aren't I technically fantastic? You know, and you have to sit there. You're invited to sit at their feet and stare up in awe and wonderment. But Sam Cooke, you feel you can join in. You know, it's not a threat. You can join in, and you can feel for one brief moment that you almost are Sam Cooke. You know,
have you ever heard the Sam Cooke track that is listed sometimes as humming track, and it's an outtake, and it's got Sam Cooke. He's not even properly on the microphone.
Yeah, right. Right.
He's tapping his foot.
Yeah,
and he's humming to himself. And the sound of Sam Cooke humming to himself, you know, just makes a mockery of absolutely 99% of household singers. You know, he's just absolutely astonishing.
He is fantastic. It struck me looking at that list actually that there's a certain type of singer who when they sing, they're reminding you constantly how technically good they are. Do you know what I mean? They're very much strong feeling that I am emoting, you know, whether you like it or not. Eddie Lang, Rufus Wainwright, Bono, I think, Al Green, so maybe Tom York too, actually. Tony Hadley of Spandau Ballet. There are various people. And it struck me that I've got to the point where there are certain singers that I can't quite deal with anymore. And Rufus Wainwright is one of them. I used to love Rufus Wainwright, and he is fantastic, but he's only got one gear. And it's absolutely overbearing. It's kind of like cheesecake. It's so rich, you know. I feel slightly the same sometimes about Elvis Costello. Elvis Costello is so mannered. I used to love him.
He's absolutely so loud. He's so loud.
Yeah.
I tell you the one that I used to love him, and I used to play him on the radio all the time because he sounded fantastic on the radio. Because it's really good drama on the radio. It always worked on radio.
What era is this?
In the 90s, and you know, and you could play him coming out of anything, and then you could play anything after him, and it was absolutely perfect for about a year. And now I never wish to hear him again.
So when was his peak?
I'm very bad at years, but anyway, I say I never wish to hear him again. That sounds really unkind. I'm sure I will change my mind at some point, but right now I don't wish to hear Jeff Buckley.
Oh, Jeff Buckley.
I'm sorry. It's just kind of overblown. It's too much. You know, it's like cheesecake. It's like you said, it's too rich. You kind of had too much of it, you know. And I suppose it's just a natural thing with the passage of time, isn't it? You know, because part of the way that we attach ourselves to pop singers is we listen to them for a long, long time, don't we?
Yeah.
So we don't get tired of them, you know. And then there are some people you just get tired of. You see, I don't get tired of Bob Dylan, oddly enough.
But then there are millions of different gears. There's millions of different voices. Oh, there's millions of different Dylans to choose from.
I suppose so.
Whereas I think Jeff Buckley probably is just pretty much the same each time.
You know, that's a really good point. And you know the other one, who's a bit similar, who's a fantastic singer by any, you know, measure, but I don't want to listen to, is Annie Lennox.
Annie Lennox, okay.
Because Annie Lennox just sounds slightly pompous to me.
Okay.
Am I allowed to say that? Yeah.
You sounded just like Neil Tennant then. That's really funny.
So that's their careers over.
But there are certain people also that I find I've never been moved by. You know, I mean, I love Debbie Harry, you know, like Madonna. I've never found either remotely moving. Have you?
I don't regard Debbie Harry as seeking to be moving. I love Debbie Harry. I love the sound of Debbie Harry.
Oh, it's great. It's fantastic sound.
Far more than I like the sound of Madonna.
Yeah.
Because Debbie Harry always sounded to me like, you know, in the best possible way, somebody singing into a hairbrush in front of their mirror, you know. and I'm not knocking that at all. You know, I'm really not knocking that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the way you want to sing in front of a mirror. That's the kind of pop way of singing. Whereas, you know, I don't like the whole Mariah Carey way of singing, which is that kind of calisthenic, showing off.
It is. It's vocal gymnastics. It's look at me, I can sing, and I'm expressing myself.
It's like look at me, I can act. Who would you rather watch, Daniel Day-Lewis or Jack Nicholson? It's Jack Nicholson every time.
Well, Jack Nicholson, it's just more relaxing. I think those people just require too much concentration and effort on the part of the listener or the viewer.
I only like one, and can I be honest? It's confession session.
Go on.
Nobody else is listening. There's nobody here but us. I only like one Madonna record.
Oh, right. Okay.
I only like one.
Let me see if I can guess. It's going to be an early one. It's going to be Get Into the Groove or It's Holiday.
No, you're wrong. No. Actually, I'd probably like more than one. But anyway, Live to Tell. I like Live to Tell.
Oh, right.
I think it's a really good song. I think she does it really well.
Yeah.
I don't like Get Into the Groove. I don't like Holiday. Don't like any of those older ones.
Okay.
Although, Like a Virgin, all right, and Like a Prayer and stuff like that. But really, the only one I really like is Live to Tell. Whereas I like hundreds of Debbie Harry records.
Yeah.
Because Debbie Harry just did. Well, I like Blondie. I like the sound of Blondie.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Blondie. There's nothing about Blondie I don't like.
No, they're fantastic.
And so the fact that she always sounded slightly dispassionate was kind of part of the charm of Blondie, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm always touched by your presence, dear, but she sounds as if she isn't. That's kind of the great thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm singing to myself in the back of a car.
Yeah.
That's I love that. I loved Debbie Harry and Blondie. Whereas I never loved Madonna at all. Not
to love
ever. So anyway, that's a few more careers killed.
The Word Podcast. Fix yourself a drink and it's like being in the pub.
All right, here we are. Any other business? And we're joined by Andrew Slattery, our much valued Patreon supporter and birthday boy. But first of all, Paul, before we go any further, we have a small presentation to make, don't we, Alex?
Oh, we do.
Via the miracle of Zoom. Alex said he would get you something to recognize the fact that you've won the quiz. How many times, Andrew?
The one just gone was the 5th.
It's unbelievable.
But also,
he is the supreme champion of our Friday night quiz.
I would say, though, and I said this in an email to Alex, I mean, I was very lucky in December. Like, December was quite high score, but I was lucky in that I was a fan of everyone that was asked.
Right,
okay.
Was the highest score we've ever had, I think. So that's a double whammy of respect coming your way.
Anyway, Alex said on his travels he would pick you up a little something, and here he is in Prague this evening, aren't you, Alex?
In Prague today. I was in Vienna.
He's gone there specifically to buy you a present.
No. Last night I was in Vienna, which of course is the home of music, is where music was invented in 1827 by John Music, and I went to a museum called the Haus der Musik, the House of Music, and from this museum I bought you a little music box.
There you go.
Amazing.
What's it play?
Well, nothing at the moment because I think we've all got our sound.
Oh, you can't hear it. It's
I can.
There it is. Well, you can read it. It says congratulations.
Playing Congratulations by Sir Cliff.
Very good work.
So that will be on its way to you.
That's great.
Collector's item.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's traditional that when it's a Patreon supporter's birthday that we invite them on the podcast and invite them to throw a log on the conversational fire, if you like. But you got a specific idea, haven't you, Andrew? Go on.
It was an idea. It came up. I mentioned this in my email. It was a couple of weeks ago on the quiz. You made reference to Petra Haden sings "The Who Sell Out."
Yes.
And much to your amusement,
and amazingly, you had incredible.
And you remarked at the time that this was the makings of a parlor game to see, someone name a couple of records and see
Yeah.
who has them and how quickly they can pull them off the shelf. Now, I don't expect anyone to pull them off the shelf, but what I thought might be a bit of fun was I picked 5 albums that are kind of
Okay.
like sort of bubbling under the kind of albums that actually 2 of them I know for a fact were done in Mojo's Buried Treasure. Do you remember the Buried Treasure?
Oh, yeah.
So it's that kind of levels. Just for a bit of fun, I thought I'd pick 5 and run them by.
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
They're not too obscure. But anyway, I'll start with
I'm unlikely to have them, but go on.
I'll start with the most recent one. This one here,
Oh, wow.
Billie Joe and Norah, Foreverly. And now this is the most recent one. This is already worryingly 9 years old. It's Billie Joe Armstrong of Green Day with Norah Jones
Oh, right.
recording in its entirety an album originally done by the Everly Brothers.
Oh, my Lord.
So I think the album was originally called "Songs Our Daddy Taught."
Oh, songs
yeah,
our
yeah,
father. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah.
and
You know,
they did the whole thing. It's a slightly tweaked order, but that's what it is.
well, I haven't got that, and I
That's
don't
good.
think
I haven't got that. No,
That's
no.
very good. So you win so far.
You so far. Are you going for outrageously obscure things or just interesting curios?
No, it's just kind of bubbling under.
No,
type
that's an
stuff.
interesting.
Yeah, they're good.
Interesting
Stuff
story.
that isn't necessarily on like the 100 greatest albums.
No,
of all
that's a
time.
great story.
No, no,
Turns
good.
up.
Good.
Okay, the next one is this fella, which is Qua by Jorma Kaukonen of Jefferson
Oh,
Airplane.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, right. Is that a solo album? It
Yes,
is, isn't
I think
right.
it was. He had done a few albums with Hot Tuna.
Hot Tuna.
Yeah, I love
Which-
Hot. I've got
which
loads
I
of Hot Tuna
recently-
records.
I recently got a compilation. They've reissued the first few Hot Tuna records, and I got that. And I'm a big fan of those.
So
early
I
Hot Tuna
love
records.
Hot Tuna. First pull up, then pull down. It's fantastic record.
But
Burgers.
This is real nice
Burgers.
because this is real just sort of finger picking good, and there's a couple of nice ones with just some strings and things on it. It's really nice.
Yeah,
A friend
yeah,
of
yeah.
mine introduced me to it, and as I say, it's one of those things that kind of turns up on lists of the best albums you've never heard. But
Yeah.
if you like Hot Tune and you like Jorma anyway, I would.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
good. Very good.
Third one, this fella,
Mellow.
Swaddling songs.
this is-
Okay.
my Mellow Candle.
We talked about that on the podcast, didn't
Who did
we?
we do? We thought it was Tom Cox or somebody
Tom
like that.
Cox, I think it was. Yeah, it's become very, very fashionable, very sought after now among record collectors, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean that's not an original because the originals are crazy money, but it's kind of beloved of, I know Mark, you love Incredible String Band.
I do.
It's kind of it's not that similar, but it's there's kind of two female voices and it's very kind of psychedelic folk.
See, Incredible String Band is it kind of it's an example of nothing, isn't it? Incredible String Band, because I love the first 3 Incredible String Band records, and then that's it. I don't go any further.
Well, then
I
again,
don't
the
like
ones after
anybody.
that were not nearly as good.
I don't like anybody like them. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I just like that.
Those
thing.
3, exactly.
Anyway, what else you got there? That's good. This is good.
This was another one that was featured in the Mojo. TPOH. It's The Pursuit of Happiness. I think it's from '88.
Oh, right.
And they're a Canadian band, and
Yes.
it's produced by Todd Rundgren.
Yes.
And they kind of had, a little bit of a cult following at the time. They had about 5 or 6 albums.
I've got one of their albums, definitely on CD.
Possibly this one. Because
it doesn't look like that, the one I've got. But
Okay.
anyway.
Is that the cover, or have they signed that one? Does it?
this one happens to be signed. I didn't get it signed, but someone gave
Beautiful.
me this one. It's signed.
Yeah.
That is the cover, though. It's just the giant letters.
Yeah.
That's what the cover is.
Yeah. Very good.
And then the last one, this one here.
Oh, Jimmy Webb. I've got that.
Emerald Jimmy Webb.
And I've got that. Yeah, but I haven't got it signed by him.
Well, I got this actually as it happened. I didn't take it out for this reason. I took it out because I think it's great. And it's, one of those sort of missing in action type albums. It's signed by Jimmy Webb, but I also got it signed by, which isn't as clear, George Martin. Can you see?
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
George Martin was doing an event in Dublin. And of course, everyone brought along their Beatles LPs, but I I thought it'd be nice to get him on this because, you know, he arranged it and he produced it. And I remember I gave it to him and he said, oh, we had a lot of fun making this. Like, I think he liked the fact that it wasn't beat.
He would have done completely.
He would.
I mean, really pleased.
Yeah, so that's nice. So anyway, that's just a bit of fun. I just thought that
that's lovely. I really like that.
That's a good game.
Great, just a good game.
They've all got a little story behind them, and that's good to know. So when was your birthday? Have you had it? Or
it was on the 30th.
Right.
So last week, but it was good fun. It was just nothing special, just sort of seeing family and stuff. It was good.
Well, look, it's been lovely to talk to you.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We'll see you very shortly after this recording for the quiz.
Indeed.
For another of your, no doubt, triumphs.
Well, we'll see.
Congratulations.
Thanks a million.
This podcast was brought to you by The Word.